This week on the Baseline Podcast, we discuss if the Reds are overrated, is Shohei Ohtani really that good, and is there any chance the Reds make the playoffs? As well as if the NBA Finals is truly worth watching, is Giannis a beast at basketball, and what's going on with the Olympics and how many medals will the U.S. win? That is what we're talking about today on the Baseline Podcast. We're going to cover all the angles and hope you will join us very shortly. Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of the Baseline Podcast. Hope you're here to hear about sports and any other crazy things that happen in the sports world, because that's what I'm here to do. My name is Ben, and I am an avid sports fan. I have loved sports my whole life. I have grown up with a dad that I'm pretty sure that I think 50% of the things he watches on TV is sports, probably more than that, maybe like 60%. But I've loved sports, and sports is something that I feel connects everybody, no matter your belief system, no matter where you're from. Sports can bring you together, right? And I'm currently living in another country. I live in Hungary, in Budapest, Hungary, where I will be getting married here in about a month, and I will be teaching. So I've gotten to learn a lot about European culture as I spent last year as a missionary here. And I'll tell you that sports here is the same thing as it is in America. It brings people together, and it really creates that, conversation that you can have. And so I really hope that this podcast brings that conversation to your home. Even though I'm all the way here, I hope it can bring it to your home. And one of the biggest things is I love American sports. So yeah, I'm going to talk about certain things. I'll probably talk about European sports here and there, but in reality, I'm really going to talk about sports that I grew up around, right? That I know really well. And hopefully you'll get some entertainment out of it, maybe some facts, and hopefully you can discuss it too in the comments of what you think. And if you're listening, you're probably listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you could find it. Or you might be watching on my YouTube channel, The Bowden Experience, where all these podcast episodes will be at. So you can watch them. You can kind of see me, interact with me. I really don't know how much that I will be recording it with this camera. I might switch to my other camera. We'll see what happens. But I really hope that you're here to enjoy some sports commentary. And yeah, so a little background on where I fell in love with sports talk radio, sports podcasts is, well, one, I had a sports talk show in college called the Full Court Press, where we talked about mainly Cedarville, where I went to college, Cedarville sports, talked about some other things as well. And then I also have been listening to the Fifth and Goal podcast, there we go, of my friend Aaron Lynn and Johnny Gaunt. And they do an amazing, amazing job. So check them out too. They do a great job on sports as well. So that's where I fell in love with it. And so I want to be able to take that same energy that they bring and that I remember from when I did this, and I want to bring it to you. So one of my favorite things to talk about is baseball, because, well, it is baseball season. It's kind of funny because being in Europe, baseball, you don't really watch baseball over here. So all the games are like in the middle of the night. So I wake up and I go through the stats and everything because I'm a stats guy. And so I love doing that. And so, yeah, here we go. So I'm going to be talking about a couple different things in sports today, but I'm going to start with baseball. We'll talk about NBA a little bit. We'll finish by the Olympics, kind of my prediction of what I think, how many Olympic gold medals I think the U.S. will have. We'll see. I don't really know. We'll find out. But we're going to start with baseball. And I'm an avid Reds fan. If anybody knows me, I am an avid Cincinnati Reds fan. I always stick by them. My father and I disagree a lot of times on how they handle things, if they're good enough, if they're bad. One of my favorite things that I love about the Reds is that they're close to home. They're 3 hours from where I grew up. And they've always had this weird dynamic, right? Like when I was younger, so when I was probably, I don't know, from 2000, I was born in 96. So from then until, 2009 or so, I would say they were bad, right? And then in 2010 to like 2015, they were like really good. Still didn't win a playoff game, but they were still good. And then they got bad again. And then last year we had a Cy Young winner and Trevor Bauer, and we thought we were good again. And we went out and we got some good hitting. and all that, right? You would think, oh, that's going to be success. And I believe that, right? We just got off the All-Star break. The All-Star break happened and Reds were good, right? Like they won 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee. Were 6 games over 500, like 4 games out of first place. 3.5, I think they were out. 4.5 of the Padres in the wild card, so they're right in it. And then what happens? Oh, they go out and they just bomb it, right? Lost 3 straight to the Brewers. Castellanos gets hurt. Pitching was terrible, which is not anything new. If you've been watching the Reds, if you're a Reds fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's the big thing, right? Like they are struggling. They're struggling a lot. And I don't know if they're going to get any better. We shall see. We'll see what happens. But I think it's only a matter of time where we start seeing the true Reds, if they're going to be good, if they're going to fix it, or are they going to just kind of go down in the tank, right? I think back in May when they went on a really bad stretch where they were like 7 games under, I was like, man, the Reds might be sellers at the trade deadline. And I really still thought they were going to be until they went on that good stretch here to finish the first half going into the All-Star break. And now again, I'm going, are they going to be sellers? Are they going to be buyers? We'll see. And I really have 3 things really to point out. Is it's struggling to hit, Castellanos being out, and the bullpen is still bad, right? Like they still have the second worst bullpen in the majors. When you have almost a 5, like it's like right around a 5 ERA in the bullpen, you don't win games, right? Like my dad says all the time, I give him a hard time. He gives me a hard time. Bad bullpen, you can't win games. You can't even compete, right? Like I was a bullpen pitcher. I knew I had to be at my best to keep a lead or to whatever, like to succeed. For our team to succeed, that's what we needed. And I think the struggling to hit, right? Like the Reds have been able to hit all year, but you knew there was going to become a point when they would start struggling. You know, Suarez is still hitting, I think, like 174. Dude, you're paying him $10 million a year and he's in 174. It's crazy. It's stupid. But that's just the reality of it, right? And I think that is where it's a struggle to see the Reds really struggling. And I think the other thing they're struggling is Castellanos not playing. It's showing that lack of diversity they have in their lineup, right? Like Winker is atrocious since June. Since June, he's hitting like 220, right? Like this is an all-star the Reds had. An all-star. You're hitting 350 at one point. Now you're hitting down to 293. Like, yeah, that's good, but dude, you're raking. And I think that you're starting to see the Reds show that they need a combination. They need a combination of pitching and hitting. And it seems like every game it's one or the other. Like they get a lot of hitting, no pitching. They get a lot of pitching, no hitting. I was thinking about, I was watching the highlights of 2 games ago with Castillo pitching, who has been complete opposite this since June, right? He's been amazing. He pitches really well. Bullpen blows it. Gray yesterday struggles, loses the game. You can't lose 3 straight to Brewers. Now you're down 7 games out of first place. 7 games. Like you can't expect to win a division. You can't even expect to be in the wild card when this happens. When the Padres lose, you got to win to pick up those games. And baseball is a game of momentum. If you struggle one game, one series, like your season could be struggling. It could be going down a rope that you don't want to go to. So you might be asking, how do you fix, right? How do you fix them? I have 2 things, right? If they're sellers, then, everything I'm about to say goes to the wayside, right? But if they're buyers, I have 2 things. Like there are plenty of teams that are struggling this year. You can go out and get bullpen help. Go get a guy. I know that they still don't have Anton. I think Anton and forget the other guy's name. But they have 2 guys that were good in the bullpen that are now hurt. They've been hurt. Lorenzen came back for a day, gets hurt, goes back on the IL. And you're talking about all these different things, right? And so I think bullpen staff, maybe get another bat, maybe bring up somebody. If you're still struggling pitching, I hate to say this, Hunter Green, bring him up. What's it going to hurt? Throw him in the bullpen. The dude throws 100 miles an hour. You can get all the help you can because every guy you bring up is just getting rocked, he's getting shelled. And it's sad that you can't find somebody or can't find relievers, but it's the part of the baseball, man. It's just some guys are having good years, some aren't. And so, that's why I titled this first podcast episode is Are the Reds Overrated? I don't know if I don't even know if people are even rating them high, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people that are saying the Reds are good, right? Like they're a decent team. They're over 500. They're still 3 games over 500, but they're just like, right? Like they're hitting. Yeah, it's good. Their pitching's not. It's really not. And so the other teams have players that are really good. Right now, we do not have many players that are really good. And one of those players that is really good, and this is my other point in baseball, is Shohei Ohtani is really good at baseball. Like, he is really good at baseball. There's guys you watch and you're like, wow, they're good. Shohei Ohtani is one of those guys that you watch and go, this might be one of the best players I've ever seen play the game. Like, I remember Joe Madden said this the other day, like, we all wish we could see Babe Ruth play. This is like watching Babe Ruth. I know he's not the same, but it's very similar in the sense that he's hitting 277, 34 bombs, and 74 RBIs. Like, oh, and by the way, he's 4-1 with a 3.49 ERA. In the same year, this dude is doing this. And it's mind-boggling to me as a guy that pitched, to think that you had to hit and pitch. We've had a lot of guys try it. There's only been 2 to succeed. Babe Ruth and Shohei Ohtani. I think Shohei Ohtani is going to be crazy good for years to come. If he stays healthy, that's a big thing. If he stays healthy, this guy could be very, very good for many, many years to come. And the Angels have a duo there in Shohei Ohtani, and if Mike Trout gets healthy, that could do some damage out west. And I really like Shohei Ohtani. I've always loved watching him. The way he hits, it's just like a sword through butter. I think the phrase is knife through butter, but same thing. So yeah, there are also other good players. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been on fire. He's leading. I think he's leading the league in average. He's got a ton of home runs, ton of RBIs. I mean, you think of Fernando Tatis Jr. and I'm thinking of some of the pitchers. Like DeGrom, a 1.12 ERA. Like, these dudes are just good at baseball, and I don't care who you say, who you tell me. These dudes are just good at baseball, and they're always going to be good at baseball. And it's fascinating to see how good some of these players are at baseball. You get shocked, I think, sometimes when you're sitting there and going, yeah, they're pretty good. But I think with that, as we start the second half, I know we're a couple games into the second half, but as we start the second half, 3 things. I think there are 3 predictions that I have for the second half that I truly believe that probably will happen, and some might shock you. And I think I've shocked myself. Anyways, so one of the big things is I believe the Reds won't make the playoffs. Now, as much as a Reds fan as I am, as much as I want the Reds to make the playoffs, I just don't see it happening. I mean, yeah, if they have a really good July, and we're not off to a great start. If they finish, let's say they win, I don't know how many games they have left in July, but let's say they win, 55% of those games, 60%, you're talking maybe they get themselves in line, but that 7 games is a huge deficit in that Central. And then even 5 games in 5.5 games in the wild card, that's still that's a big leap, right? Like, that's a big leap to make. And I think you have to be willing to make that leap. And if they don't get their pitching figured out and they don't get their hitting figured out, I'm not saying their hitting's bad. Like, their hitting it's pretty good, to be honest with you. Like, their hitting is one of those things where I think it will be fine. Like, they have some really good hitters, some good young guys, Stevenson, India, but it's that pitching. And I don't know if they'll be able to fix it. And I truly believe this, kind of segueing from that, is that 3 NL West teams will make it, right? We've seen the Central do it before. The NL Central, I think the NL West could get the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Padres all in. Like, they're all 3 that good. The Giants are freakishly good. They've hit so many home runs this year. Like, the Giants are one of those teams you look at and you go, how are they good? But then you see the pitching they have, Gosman and all those guys, Johnny Cueto, a former Red, and their hitting is good. Like I don't think they really have, like, they have good players, but I don't think they have that guy that's like, besides Buster Posey, that's like a star, right? Then of course the Dodgers, can't count the Dodgers. And then my third, and I'm just doing this because I don't like the Yankees. I don't think the Yankees make the playoffs. Now, again, I have to look. I'm going to pull it up right now. Part of me is thinking, okay, let's see. They are the Yankees. Yeah, they're 7 games back. They're 4 games over 500. Now, that's still doable, right? Now, the wild card, they're 3.5 back, right? Like, I still think the Yankees in general could make the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying this is a guarantee. I'm terrible at this a lot of times. But the reason why I think they are struggling is I don't want to say they're struggling. It just feels like against some teams they're doing well and other teams are not, right? Like I've kind of tried to keep up with every team. Like, yeah, they beat Red Sox back-to-back games. Awesome. They lost against Red Sox, lost against, won 2 in a row against Astros, lost in Mariners, won 3 in a row. Lost 3 in a row at one point, then lost 4 in a row. It just seems like they're up and down, right? Chapman has kind of been disappeared as a closer. He's inconsistent at times. I don't know. I think they need to get some guys. Like I believe this. They will make the playoffs if they go out and get some bats. If they can go out and get the Chris Bryant maybe from the Cubs or an Adam Frazier from the Pirates, if they can get some of these guys to throw out there, then it's a whole new ball game, right? Like I think they have the youngsters to do it. They can go out and get this. I definitely know they're probably not winning the East. I don't see it happening. I could see them making the wild card, but Boston is just unreal this year. Even though they've lost 2 in a row, Boston, Tampa Bay, it's theirs to lose. So yeah, I think the Yankees won't be making the playoffs. So that's my baseball roundup. I hope that you probably have some strong opinions. Please comment below. Please let me know. I think that I probably am wrong about a lot of these things, but hey, these are my thoughts. These are my opinions. Come at me. I'm willing to, chat about them because, and especially if Aaron's watching, he's very strong opinionated, but definitely will be checking this out very, very soon to see what you all have to say. So with that, we're going to swing it on over to the NBA. Let's talk a little bit of NBA Finals series. Now, obviously, being in Hungary, I have a VPN, so I've watched a little bit. But I'm telling you, it is crazy. This final series seems to be so crazy. It's like I thought, man, the Suns, boom, Chris Paul, first championship, they're going to pull it out. And then Giannis said, and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday said, no. They were like, and no, we ain't doing this. We're going to take care of this. So yeah, I've loved this final series. Like I'm not a huge NBA fan. Like I'll make it very clear. I as I always feel like when I talk to Johnny and Aaron of their podcast, like they love the NBA. I'm not a big fan of the NBA. I like college basketball a lot more. But my finals prediction at the beginning of the playoffs was Hawks versus Suns. I got a half right. All right. I like this series the most because it's small market teams. Now, some think that, well, yeah, it doesn't bring the money to the NBA. Like, I don't care about that. Like, I just want to see good basketball. And if good basketball means you're a small market team like the Cavs, who I'm a fan of, made it a few years ago and won it, then that's what you want to see. You want to see small market teams win because it brings balance to the NBA. And balance to the NBA means more people are going to watch. Like sometimes it gets annoying when you see the same teams winning all the time or the big teams, none of these small teams. And I think that's hopefully starting to change. Now, I will say when Giannis got hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals, I didn't know if he was going to play in the finals. And I said that was a big no-no, right? Like that was going to be a make or break for the Bucks. If he doesn't play, then I think the Suns could win in 5, right? But if he does come back and play, which he ended up doing, I think getting him healthy and then playing, I think it was going to be a big swing, and it has been. Chris Middleton's been good. I think of, if I pull it up here, I think one of the big things was, I think Giannis is one of those guys that Giannis just is, he's just good. He's 7 foot tall. He's a freak of nature and he makes a difference. Chris Middleton makes a difference. A guy who can shoot. Holiday has shown up not out of nowhere, but like a guy that's like saying, hey, I want to play too. Now, I love Chris Paul. I love the Suns, but they've gone through some injuries. Ayton has turned himself into a legitimate center. I just think the Bucks have become a little too much to handle for the Suns. Originally, when the finals started, I picked the Suns to win this finals, and I think 6 is what I picked. I think the Bucks win in 6. I think they win. I believe it's 3-2, right? I'm not crazy. Yeah. It's 3-2. I believe the Bucks go to game 6 and bring it home. I think they win the championship. I could be wrong. Maybe Chris Paul has some magic in him, but I don't see how a team like the Bucks, you're this close. You have a star like him. You got to be able to pull this out. I think you got to finish. And the Suns, they come from behind. I know what it's like. I've watched the Cavs come 3-1 down. Maybe they got something in them. It's 3-2. I just like watching it. It's going to be a great game. Games, I should say. Hopefully. Maybe it's games. Maybe it's only one game. But yeah, so I think Bucks win in 6. I think that, the NBA is one of those things where anything can happen and everything can happen. And I think that's what makes the finals so good. And I'm really excited to see, I'm excited to see what happens, but I also want to see kind of like what is, what, not just what happens, but really like the storylines. Like that's what I love about the NBA finals. Like you hear about these unsung heroes that come out of nowhere and it become a really big part of everything. So that's what's awesome. And so I do know that there is also a draft coming up for the NBA, which I will be talking about hopefully here in another video. But until then, we're going to switch it on over. We're going to dribble it on over. We're going to dribble on over to Olympics. We're going to talk about a little bit of the Olympics and a little preview and see what happens there and then. So I don't know really why I chose to say dribble on over to the Olympics because there's multiple sports in the Olympics. So let's talk about the Olympics. Let's chat about the Olympics. The Olympics have always been one of my favorite things to watch. Growing up as a kid from small town in Ohio, you get to see these different Olympics happen from all over the world. And I remember my first Olympics I ever watched with my family was Beijing in 2008. I just remember that was really fun just to like see, the athletes, see the different talents that were there, and you just are mesmerized by like these athletes. Like these are the best athletes in the world. And you could say all you could say about the NBA, the NFL, or anything like that, but these are the best athletes at their given sport in the world. It doesn't even come close. There's nothing that will come closer to that. And it's just really, really cool. I remember actually, was it 2008 or 2012? I think it was 2012. They came out with a video game. This is kind of plugging my own thing. I'm going to be streaming on Twitch here this week. But one of my favorite video games I ever played was I think it was London Olympics Mario edition. I think it was, where you could like do the different sports, but like with Mario. I don't know why I said that. I just thought it was fun. Maybe that's not fun to you at all, but I also like watching the Winter Olympics. For some reason, I think the Summer Olympics just are closer to me because I like the sports. But speaking of the sports, there's actually some new sports that are happening this year in the Olympics that I'm super excited about. It's one of those things where you don't really get to see a lot of different sports, I guess, added to the Olympics, or at least like I don't remember many since I've grown up. But some of the cool ones are like baseball and softball. Like I've always said those should be in the Olympics. Seeing those, I don't know if they were at one point or not. I can't remember. But baseball and softball, the U.S. better. Actually, to be honest, I don't know if the U.S. will win baseball. I think they might win softball, but we'll see. I think that's an up in the air. I think the Caribbean and the South American countries have a lot to say about that. But I think there's only 8 teams, I think, in baseball and softball. I have it up here. I can pull it up. I think there is only 7 teams, 8 teams. I don't really know. I can't I can't tell, but I believe there's only like 7 or 8 teams. And another thing is that's new is 3-on-3 basketball. Now, this one for me is intriguing. Why? Number one, uh, the cool thing about the the I guess Olympic sports in general, right? Like one of the coolest things about it is that it's you add all these weird elements to a sport you love, right? Like, so basketball, I love watching European. I love watching America play basketball. I grew up playing the sport. I love the sport. But 3-on-3 basketball is one of those things that actually you see a lot in Europe. So actually last year I was able to go to a FIBA 3-on-3 basketball tournament here in Hungary. There was like Hungary, I think it was like Israel, Slovenia, I think was there, maybe Slovakia, Serbia. And it's really cool to watch. Like, you're used to playing with a lot of guys, then you have 3-on-3. I believe the US men didn't qualify, if I remember correctly. I know the women did, which is really cool. It'll be cool to see the thing go out and get the gold. 3-on-3 is one of those things where if you have one stud player, it can go a long way. But I put in my notes there's 64 games. That's total, like with everything. But in the Summer Olympics, there are let's see, 4, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 46 games in the Olympics this year. 46. Like I said, 3-on-3 basketball, baseball, softball is a new one. I know another new one that I'm interested. I think golf might not be new, but it's coming back. I think maybe. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. But one of the other ones I am looking forward to, if I can find it on this list here, I think BMX freestyle. I think that's a new one. That's going to be really, really cool. I've always thought those guys are just really amazing. But probably if I could list my top 3 sports to watch in the Olympics, I would say this is swimming is one, mainly because I can't swim. Swimming. I love watching the track races, so like all the different track races you have, the 400, all the ones that I can never remember. And I love watching table tennis. Table tennis to me is fascinating to watch. If you've ever seen the Chinese or the Japanese or any of those Asian countries and US as well, but like I've watched them and I'm just like, this is mesmerizing. Which is it's fascinating. Then on top of that, diving is one that I didn't list, but diving's also up there. I mean, there are some really, really like you have to be really good. You have to be crazy skinny as well. Like I feel like they're so thin that they just like don't even pierce the water. They just kind of glide in. It's kind of crazy. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of amazing sports to watch this year. I know they start here soon. I think they start in what? Through 4 days, 3 days when this comes out, maybe less depending on when I get this out. Just depends on a lot of things, which is really cool. Hungary, since I'm living here in Hungary, I know I'll be paying attention to Hungary. They're going to be probably good at swimming. They'll be good at water polo, I think. Some handball they'll be decent at, I think. I honestly don't know all the sports that Hungary made it in, but I'm really excited to see like who wins what. From Hungary, the nation I'm living in, but then America, we're going to get to it now. So what is my guess, right? Of how many gold medals America will win? To be honest, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. Sorry, I'm typing as I'm doing this. If you're watching, if you're listening, then you're probably like, why is he silent? I'm typing. Of gold medals you can win in the Summer Olympics. Sorry, I was typing and trying to talk at the same time. I guess there's less sports than I said. Did I say there's more? Did I miscount? Anyway, maybe I miscount on the total number of sports, but it looks like there's a total of 339 medals that can be won in this Tokyo Olympics. I'm interested to see who wins. But I think the U.S. will come away with like around 100, I think, give or take. I'm not great on this. I don't really know like the best at each thing, but I'm going to estimate about 100, maybe a little less. But again, I don't really know. I do know that the all-time winningest summer, I should say, summer medals is United States. They have over 1,000 gold medals. So I think I have a pretty good shot. It'd probably maybe be more than 100, but I think I have a pretty good shot of getting that correct there. But it's crazy to look at this list. The Soviet Union has the second most. Don't exist anymore. They have 1,000 medals. Great Britain and France and Germany, Italy, all in there. China, Australia. So, and Hungary actually has like this 9th most medals. Fascinating. Anyways, I'm super excited for the Olympics. I'm super excited to talk about the Olympics. I know that the next coming show. So originally, I'm really jumping all over the place, but so originally I was thinking about doing two episodes a week of the Baseline podcast. I don't think as of now I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to stick with one, just like a weekly. So I'll cover stuff weekly. As more sports comes, we'll see how that changes up. This might end up being like an hour podcast. I don't really know. I do know that it's one of those things where I didn't want to overdo it in the beginning of figuring out how I want to do this. Again, it's a learning process. I haven't done a sports show in like, 4 years. No, 2.5 years. So I haven't really been doing a sports show in a while. So still learning tips and tricks and things I can be doing better. So I'm super excited about bringing this to you. But there's one thing that I'm going to bring to you on every episode, and it's going to be a crazy sport fact of the week. And you know what the crazy sport fact is? Well, it's because baseball season's here, and I love baseball. Is that Gaylord Perry hit his first and only home run a few hours after Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. Now, that's pretty crazy to me, mainly because it's fascinating. The fact that he hit his first and only home run after Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, which I don't remember the year it was, but that's crazy. And I'm just because it's the first episode, I'm going to give you a bonus fact of the week. And one of those really facts of the week is it's a very interesting fact, considering we have the Olympics coming up and considering how much we all love the Olympics. It's this: only Greece and Australia have competed in every Olympic game. Every Olympic game, I think that means winter and summer, but every Olympic game, Greece and Australia have competed in. That is pretty cool. And that's a very interesting fact. And that's a way to end this show. So I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the Baseline podcast. Like I said in the title, are the Reds overrated? Maybe a little bit, depending on what side you're on. Do I think Shohei Ohtani is the best in the world? Maybe not yet, but he's really good at baseball. And the Olympics are coming, and the Olympics are going to be amazing. I hope you're watching them just like I'm going to be watching them. And I hope that you have an amazing week. I hope that it's filled with joy and happiness. And once again, until next time, I'll see you.